Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Believe in the Eagles. Mike Gill, Eytan, Shander over there as we got
You got to get
Dallas
used to the.
week. Eytan, Dallas week. Is Dallas week a thing? You're a columnist for PhillyVoice.com. Is that a column worth writing, Dallas week?
No, in fact, the column that I just wrote was about James Harden. So that should tell you about how big. Look, it is here because I think people hate Dallas. And the biggest thing as a player coming into Philadelphia for the Eagles that you can do to make life easy for yourself is to just tell the world in Philly, I hate Dallas. And I grew up hating Dallas. And then everybody loves you here. But the reality, and I got to give a shout out to my guy, Newey Scruggs down in Dallas, because I used to work with Newey, know Newey well. There is no Eagles week. There is no, it's Philadelphia Eagles week. Look, if it's the last game of the season and there's playoff implications, if it's a conference championship game, if there's something of weighted value, Mike, then sure, they're going to be talking about it extra with a heightened sense of importance. But there is no Eagles week. So as soon as I heard that, I was kind of like, takes away a little bit of Dallas week.
Well, I've always said I feel like the Dallas week is a manufactured thing. Eagles fans should be better than that. I always said it should be Eagles Giants. We're right here. We're in the same proximity, and somehow the Eagles fans have lowered themselves to allow Dallas week to be something that it really shouldn't be. Hence, the reason why Dallas has, this national appeal is because smart fans like Eagle fans allow it to be bought in and infiltrated into our subconscious, and it shouldn't be. The Eagles, over the last 25 years, are just a better franchise than the Cowboys.
Absolutely.
And why do we put them on our level? Shame on the Eagles fans.
I get it, man. I get it. There is this ingrained sense of hate.
Yeah, well, it's always the inferiority, the little brothers. Everybody else had Super Bowls. Like, you're allowing yourself to bring them onto your level for the same reason that you don't like them. They always talk about their past Super Bowls, and yet you yearn. When you say Dallas week, it almost means you yearn to have what they have because you're acknowledging that they have something that you don't.
Look, if you want to be completely blunt and go through a little history lesson here, you are to blame more than anybody. South Jersey is to blame for this because we all thought in our greater Delaware Valley area, across the bridge, down all the way through Atlantic City, out to Westchester, Pennsylvania, as north as maybe Allentown, if not farther, and south by Maryland, that this whole love of Dallas as a national team. Remember, back in the 70s, 80s, right? 90s, where they were just this insane machine. We all thought in our area, we're bulletproof to that. We're impervious to that because why? Philadelphia, greater Philadelphia, is the smallest big city in the world. Well, the reality is that it wasn't the case. So a lot of us have a family member, have a friend, have an uncle, have a grandfather, have a neighbor. A lot of us have somebody in our world that grew up liking the Cowboys, even though it kind of went against this. This is one of the few places in the city, Mike, where if you don't root for a team in the city, you are perceived as anti-city. I lived in Nashville for 2.5 years. I still rooted for the Eagles, but nobody called me anti-Nashville.
Right. Well, if you come from a place, if you grew up in a place and then moved, you are allowed to still cheer for that team. That's within your rights. Being a fan is about civic pride. So to latch onto a team for any other reason other than civic reasons makes no sense. And hence,
it's usually because you hate somebody in your family. My dad's an Eagles fan. I hate my dad, so I'm going to be a Cowboys fan.
Okay, well, there you go. Dad,
I'm telling you, Mike, I've had this conversation. You and I both, years of experience on the radio talking to people. I used to have this and I would solicit the same thing. Like, why in the world did you grow up a Cowboys fan? Is your dad a Cowboys fan? No, man, my dad's an Eagles fan. He couldn't tell me.
It's always the uncle. I started watching games with my uncle, and that's why I became a fan. It makes no sense. And then the oddity, which I don't want to get into too much more, is that how such a high population of these Cowboy fans are also Yankees fans and Lakers fans. It almost is perplexing, but let's talk about this. The Eagles are 3-point favorites. Are you surprised? It seems a little disrespectful to give the Birds just the 3-point number.
No, I don't think. Okay, so the number initially is created right through a couple of key statistical pieces, and then also there's something added to it, right? Like, is this a publicly bet team? Is this a team that they know is going to take in a lot of money before they set the line?
Right.
So initially, when you look at it, right, like there's some stuff, yards per pass, that you're giving up per pass. Like there are certain key things that teams, that books, I should say, are looking at to create this. The Eagles defense is not good. Like we can't have it both ways, right? Which is on one hand say, yeah, they've been doing this poorly. They've been doing that poorly. They've been doing that poorly, but they're 7-1. And then see the bookmakers who look at all that other stuff say, we're not buying the record. We're buying the substance of the record and have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with the 3. I love the Eagles -3. We talked about it then on our preview with Courtney. I'll continue with that on the bigger show here. But ultimately, I think that's where it generates from, which is home field advantage is probably 1.5 points right now in the NFL following COVID. The Eagles and Cowboys are both publicly bet teams, so that's kind of a wash. And the Eagles defense has been so suspect, especially against the pass, Gill, that I think it actually does make sense to lay
some
3.
weeks, Eytan, some weeks. Now, this is interesting. I'm glad you brought this up. CeeDee Lamb, career high 12 catches, 158 yards for Dallas in week 8. He's seeking a second career streak of 3 games in a row with over 100 yards. And you would say in the slot, he's going to shred this team. Tyreek Hill, 11 catches, 88 yards in the game against the Eagles. They only gave up 10 points. Remember, we talked about the high-flying Dolphins. They scored 10 points against the Eagles, 17 total. One was on an interception return. More on that coming up. But they slowed down the Dolphins. Why can't they slow down Dak and the Cowboys? I'll bring this up. Look at the receptions. CeeDee Lamb has 46. The next guy has 20 or 25. They only throw the ball to one guy.
Hey, Washington got 400 yards nearly and 4 touchdowns.
They spread the ball around. Logan Thomas, Curtis
exactly.
Samuel,
It's week to week. And that's the thing is, as much as I love to make fun of Mike McCarthy, they have a week to look at this, and they have a week to examine what works for them versus what doesn't. And it's also a matchup issue, right? It's a matchup issue where the Eagles definitely matched up better than the performance that they gave against the Washington offensive line. It seemed like pressure on Sam Howell was almost non-existent outside of Nakobe Dean for the most part. So even when you do have a matchup that makes sense, like the Eagles should shut down CeeDee Lamb and this wide receiver core, there's always something. And when you give up big plays, or you give up, or you can't turn over another team, or you're turning the football over, does it really matter if it's 1st and 10 on the Eagles 13, who's getting the football when they just turned the ball over to Dallas?
Well, you mentioned the battle in the trenches, the Cowboys and the Eagles. It's one of the best matchups in the NFL here. The Eagles offensive line rank in pass block win rate and first in run block win rate. They'll likely be tested this week against Dallas because they lead the NFL in pass rush win rate, but they have struggled against the run. They are 22nd in that area. And I've been saying on my show, I think the Eagles go back to week 2 and week 3 where they run the ball 35, 40 times, because that's what the big drop-off is. Dallas should be able to get pressure, but if you run the ball right at Parsons, you mentioned the trenches, that's where Philadelphia has the advantage in this game, Eytan. And I think we'll see a DeAndre Swift back to week 2 and 3 where they ran it 40 times.
I hope. It's not like a quarterback, right? Where if you get to 40 attempts, even 35 attempts for most guys in the NFL, you're thinking that's just not a recipe for success. Most, if not all quarterbacks, really, you don't want to be throwing 45, 50 times, even if you're peppering a running back for half of those. On the opposite end of that, though, Mike, is what you just laid out with DeAndre Swift, and really most good running teams with a line and back to complement, which is there's no really bad number. If DeAndre Swift had 40 touches against Dallas, that's not going to be a bad thing. We're not going to come back next week and say they gave DeAndre Swift way too many touches, because people, including coaches, especially coaches, they abandon the run much faster than they will abandon the pass. And that's just the nature of the NFL. So I'm with you.
Okay. Will we see Gainwell a big part of this week, or is the coach realizing what we're seeing? time to maybe move on from that.
So I had a conversation on one of the shows on 29 with your pal, Scott Grayson,
Grayson.
right? That's your guy. I'm not going to claim Scott Grayson. I'm going to put him on you.
I found
all
Scott
right?
Grayson. I found him.
Exactly. Well, no, I didn't mean it as positive. I meant that as a distant. But look, Scotty actually made the point, and I think it's a really good one. And it had me thinking about what's happening with Kenny Gainwell. Scott, who is in the locker room, who covers his team, said he thinks Kenny Gainwell is pressing. That he
brought
is
that up on my
pressing,
show
right?
on Tuesday. We do a segment called Grayson's Grades. He gave
Wait, was this Tuesday of this week?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes,
he already tried the material out with me on Monday night so that he could use it fresh and professionally with you, just to say that.
Yeah, we do a segment called Grayson's Grades on the radio. And Tuesday, he brought that up. He gave Gainwell a D in the game, and he explained why. And he said he thought he was pressing in the game. So we'll see if Gainwell, Rashaad Penny, should he be a bigger? Why does he have no on this team?
Because he's not good. And
6
that's
yards
always
to carry. My man had 6 yards to carry last year in Seattle. Last year, 6 yards.
Limited opportunities.
Well,
how many rushes?
The problem is, Eytan, he had 6 yards to carry last year and the year before. The problem is he can't stay healthy. Well, he is healthy right now. He's healthy. Let him get his 6 yards before he gets hurt.
He's not guaranteed 6 yards per carry. The fact that somebody did it one time. Look, these guys are watching him, okay?
That's not
every
true.
day in practice.
Eytan, he averaged 6 yards a carry on 2 years, 2 separate seasons. He averaged. Now, the problem has been he has not 1,000%. He has not been able to stay healthy.
He's also not a bulk back. What? Okay, you're really making me bring up Rashaad Penny stats right now. Shame on you.
5'11", 220, by the way. He's the biggest back they have.
He had 57 rushes, and you're going on the fact that he had 6 yards per carry. He had 57 rushes. The most he's ever had was 119.
And how many yards a carry did he have when he had 119 carries?
But that's my point, is that I can give you in 2020, he had 11 carries. He was 3-1. In 85, he only had 4.9 yards per carry. He is an anomaly. That's all. Every year he's an anomaly.
That's 5 yards, 4.9, 5 yards a carry. You give him the ball twice, you got a first down.
Not in every scenario. That's my point. Is like what scenario was Seattle in when they were even running him? You can't
listen.
85 rushes, 57 rushes to me is not a guy who's getting the majority.
I like this conversation. By the way, in his career, 43 games, he has averaged 5.7 yards per carry. I just asked the question of why not give him an opportunity over Kenny Gainwell? Why not say, hey, this guy has been productive? Gainwell, by the way, 5'9", 200 pounds. Rashaad Penny's 5'11", 220. This is a guy who's a bigger back who has produced. My question is,
produced?
Yeah.
Who has had more success with Nick Sirianni in their career? It's Kenny Gainwell. What was the guy doing in the Super Bowl and the playoffs? My point being is that there's a level of trust here in which they have seen it from Kenny Gainwell.
Right about that. But when you're right about, I'll give you that. The trust is why Gainwell's there. They trust him. They believe in him the most. That's why by the way, if you remember week 1, he was the back here. He got hurt. Because why? They trusted him the most. But they were proven to be wrong with their trust. Swift took over for him, and Wally pipped his ass. So why doesn't Gainwell get Wally pipped now by Rashaad Penny? That's all I'm asking for.
Because I'll tell you why. First off, the coach is real. What Scott says is accurate, which I have no reason to believe it's not. If this is really a pressing issue, you can fix that. You can have a conversation. Somebody on the staff needs to sit down with Kenny Gainwell and say, look, man, this is your ceiling. You're not going to get 20 touches a game. This is not going to be who you are. You're going to get 6 to 8 touches a game, and those are going to be super important for us. And we need you out there knowing this is your role because you can really help us. That type of conversation, reinforcing that type of conversation. Here's the other part. You cannot make, I don't care who you have, all right? You go back, you bring Brooks back, you bring anybody that you've ever worked with that's a former player, and you ask them if there is a trust issue with the guy who's always hurt. And the reason why Nick Sirianni and this offense are not turning to Rashaad Penny is twofold. One, it's a major blow to Kenneth Gainwell if you still believe in him. Like, you're talking about a guy who's pressing, who's having confidence issues. This is a major blow. It's like pulling a young quarterback and then trying to go back to him. So that's the issue. The other part of it is, look who you're pulling him for. If Rashaad Penny gets 6 yards in his first carry and then is out for the season after that, you have no choice but to go back to Kenny Gainwell, but not out of your own decision. It's out of circumstance of him getting hurt.
I think you're right that they're saying if they don't want to change roles. If someone else gets hurt, you might see Penny become the guy and Gainwell stays in the same role. Like,
yeah,
if
I would
Smith
see that.
got hurt.
Right.
All right, man. Tell me about Underdog for the people out there.
I want to have, so I get it. Like, everybody's out there trying to beat the books, right? Like, you've got VIG, you've got all this other stuff here. It's impossible to beat the books. So we've got something here for you at Underdog. It's awesome. There's a link below. You can sign up. We'll match your first deposit up to $100. It's as simple as it gets. It's over, it's under. That's it. Like, that's all you're choosing. You can build a 3-leg card. You can build a 5-leg card. You can hit me or Mike up on Twitter at Shander Show for me, at the Mike Gill Show, right? For you. And we'll talk you through any plays that you may have. You can follow where I am on Odd Chopper, of course, too. And we have tons of content. But look, that's the beauty of it. We're giving you Lamar Jackson over a half total yards as a free, if you will, card. Like, that one's going to hit. So you can put that with another 1, 2, 3. You can build as much as you can, up to about 5 cards on this. And the beauty of it, beyond, of course, Mike, that we're going to match someone's first deposit up to $100, is that it's easy. You don't need to go through, player prop, all this other stuff. It's simply going up or down, above or below a number. You don't have to worry about who wins the game. You don't have to worry about any backdoor covers, any crazy stuff like that. It's simple. You have to be 18 or older to play. Jump on in.
That seems like free money.
Lamar Jackson's going to get over a half yard, we would think, right?
Better. He's my fantasy quarterback. All right, Dallas and Eagles this week. Let's take a couple looks at some of the key things real fast. A.J. Brown, 939 yards receiving this season. He only needs 61 yards, by the way, to be the fastest Eagle ever to get 1,000 yards in the season. By the way, if he gets 61 yards, here's a trivia question for you, Shander Show. He will join one other player in Eagles history to have 1,000 yards receiving in each of his first 2 seasons. Do you know the other?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is T.O., but what happened there in year 2, I would say no, right?
T.O. didn't quite make it through the second year.
Right.
He was doing sit-ups in his driveway.
So this is going to be, I mean, it's either somebody that's like way old, like Mike Quick or some crazy shit like that.
You would know him. He's still in the mix.
Like,
I mean, he doesn't play, but I mean, he's a guy.
No.
Yeah.
Is it Aguilar?
It's not Nelson Aguilar. I don't know that he ever had 1,000 yards in a season. How about Irving Fryer? He signed here from.
I thought you meant like still in the NFL. That's what threw me off.
Not active. Sorry.
No.
Sorry about that.
Boy, that just tells you how awful the Eagles have been in identifying talent
at wide receiver. No question.
Yeah.
61 yards he needs to be the first guy with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. My question, I guess, would be, we talked about the run game, the win rate. Do you run the ball or do you make this a A.J. Brown day? I go run the ball. Will they go? What will they go? I go to ball. If I'm giving out a game ball, I hope at the end of the day it's DeAndre Swift had the big game, but do you think it'll be A.J. Brown?
So this is contrary to, I think, a lot of what I've seen and what has been successful in the NFL, but it's similar to what the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce. And I think you have to start recognizing A.J. Brown as not just the best receiver, but the best impact, maybe even non-quarterback impact player in the NFL. And that includes guys on defense. I'm not saying definitively he is, but we need to have this conversation. If people are going to talk about Christian McCaffrey in the MVP race, you look at what A.J. Brown has done to keep his team in football games. And it's not just Jalen Hurts dropping a bucket into his hands. A.J. Brown is the most active, meaning like going out and grabbing the football wide receiver we have. He's making catches that anybody can really throw to him. I'm not diminishing Jalen Hurts. I'm just saying that A.J. Brown is a beast. With all of that said, Mike, I honestly think You have to open this up and attack with A.J. Brown, because if you can get a lead and if you can get an early score, or you just are going back and forth with Dallas and that's your main vehicle of success, that run game is going to come. Now, I think there's balance. I'm not saying neglect the run game entirely, but normally I'm with you. Like 9 out of 10 times I'm with you. They've got a guy in A.J. Brown who I think, you know what, you have to attack. You have to see what Dallas is going to do with A.J. Brown, because that's two things. One, it's going to open up DeAndre Swift in the run game. The other, it may open up, if it's Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert or Swift, or Swift in the run game and the pass game. I know a lot of quick ones. That helps too. I think the best strategy for the Eagles offense is to attack with A.J. Brown against any team until you're told that they can't stop it.
Yeah, no digs, by the way. Keep that in mind in their secondary. And A.J. Brown in the 2 games last year against Dallas had 11 catches in the 2 games against them. Had pretty big numbers. 2 games, 11 catches, 170 yards, and a touchdown in 2 games. Diggs was in those 2 games. He is now out for the season. Last thing I want to kind of bring up in this game. Cowboys games this year, Shander, have been decided by 23.6 points this year. They're blowouts generally. Is this a blowout? And if it's not, does that give Philadelphia the clear advantage that they've been in more close games?
I wouldn't tease Dallas this week, if that's what you're asking me. Where at 3, it's usually a good play. You're covered by 3, 7, 6. I wouldn't tease Dallas. I would get Dallas. If I'm playing Dallas this week, I'm playing them at an alternate number at 14 and working that in something else.
Right, so
14, by the way, is
going to 9.
No, I'm not taking 7. I'm not taking 7.5. 10 is less of a key number than 14 anyway. So I'm not worried about that so much. I just don't trust this. It's not blowout, but I don't trust the pull away. How about that? The pull away factor for the Philadelphia Eagles, which is you're up 7, you're up 10, you get a stop, you get one more touchdown. That's, I think, in the works. Nick Sirianni may go college mode here and not run it up, but add an extra touchdown just because it's Dallas, just because they're at home and he can pander.
Little tush-push handoff like last week, late in the game.
Right.
You didn't like that, though. You thought that Swift should have got down.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, look, that type of stuff comes back at you. That type of stuff is, and you saw that, right? Like you saw that right away. The people are now saying, well, Washington got some bogus BS touchdown at the end. What do you think that DeAndre Swift touchdown was, right? That was garbage time as well. And exactly, most opportunities you see, a guy will go down. The big thing is they weren't going to lose that game, but you just saw it the other night on, I think it was Monday night, right? Where the Lions had a chance to go in, and instead they ran the ball and they kneeled, because you don't want to give a team an opportunity to score and then recover the onside kick. Washington, what would have happened if Washington recovered the onside kick? We would have had a conversation about why DeAndre Swift did not go down. So I hate using the after the fact as reasoning to justify. Mike, he should have gone down.
Fair. Definitely fair. Big game. You got to go down in that situation. Doesn't bite you in this game, but it's muscle memory, man. Muscle memory. By the way, Prescott is 28-7 in his career against the NFC East. This is only the second time Hurts and Prescott have actually played. Someone's always hurt in this game. Dak won the other meeting 41-21 in the game. Dak Prescott 3-0. 44 points a game in his last 3 starts against the Eagles, and he completes 80% of his passes 3 times this year. Those numbers all sound like Dallas is licking their chops for the Eagles this week.
I love this stat. It's why I bet the Eagles. Dak's 5-12 straight up, 5-11-1 against the spread. This is after week 3 already. He's got a TD and interception ratio of 21-16. What's the circumstance? Playing on the road between 2 home games. There is something about that. We just saw this week 3 at Arizona. He's got Philadelphia this week, and he's got make a note. He's got Carolina week 11. By the way, that's Frank Reich, a guy who coached in the NFC East and knows a lot about the tendencies of Dak Prescott. Mike, all I'm saying is every now and again, you find a record, you find a trend, you find a piece of data that just represents who somebody is. It just means that Dak, in this particular situation, no matter how well he's played or even against the opponent, because I bet he's got great numbers against Arizona, finds a way to make things too much or much more difficult than they have to be.
All right, there you go. Believe in Eagles. It's Eagles Cowboys. Eytan Shander. Give me a pick for the game.
I think the Eagles win this one. I don't know if it's as high scoring as people believe, but I believe it's a 28-19 Eagles victory.
Okay, I'm going a little higher than that. I got 30-24 Philadelphia.
Okay. We both have them covering.
Philadelphia. Before we roll, remind the people about how they can make some cash.
Just click this link below, right? First off, we appreciate you hanging with us. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button and you're subscribed here, most importantly, because we want you part of this amazing community. And now we're giving you money at Underdog. We'll match your first deposit. Again, 18 or older, 19 in Alabama and Nebraska, Arizona, Massachusetts.
Nebraska. Come on. There's
correct. 21 or old. It's been a while, right? Gambling problem.
New England's not a state. New England's not a state.
I didn't say New England. I said Nebraska. All right. We're giving you a free card of Lamar Jackson. My goodness. We'll match your first deposit. Click below. But be a part of the Believe in Eagles community. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, we're growing and growing and growing. We're doing more and more and more. You can find us on Twitter at Shander Show, at Mike Gill Show, Fox 29, 97.3 ESPN for me, Fox 29 for him, Philly Voice for him, Odd Shopper for him. He's all over the place. I'm just right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. All right,
you're
Shander.
smart. You don't have to move.
All right, man. We'll do it again next week.
All right, Gill.